once if you use the constructor, so it is going to create an object of a class and it's going to reserve some space in computer memory. What are default arguments? Here the constructors without any parameters are called default arguments. This is not a constructor because the function name here is display, the class name is example. So this cannot be a constructor. It is a normal function. Dear students, welcome to Computer Science classes. I am Ravi Kumar KR, lecturer in Computer Science, Vidhyaashram PU College, Temple of Excellence, Mysore. Students, let us start our discussion with the new chapter, that is chapter 9, Constructors and Destructors. Now, the weightage of the chapter is as follows. We have one MCQ question for 1 mark and one 2-mark question for 2 marks and one 5 marks question, that is 5 marks. Totally you have 8 marks. So weightage of the chapter is 8 marks. In this chapter, we are going to learn constructors and what are types of constructors and constructor overloading and destructors. See, these are the concepts we are going to learn with syntax and example program. Now let us see the first definition of a constructor. So what is a constructor? A constructor is a special member function that is used in classes to initialize the object of a class automatically. So this is the definition of a constructor. So it is a special member function used to initialize the object of a class automatically. You know what is an object and what are classes. So if you want to initialize the objects, so we are using this constructor. So constructor is a special member function used to initialize the object of a class automatically. Now it is a special member function that used to initialize and destroy the objects of a class automatically so that the memory utilization can be optimized. So here, once if you use the constructor, so it is going to create an object of a class and it's going to reserve some space in computer memory. So after that, the memory has to be released or it has to be deleted through destructors. So we are using a constructors and destructors are the two concepts where destructors are used to destroy the object of a class automatically so that the memory can be utilized effectively. The automatic initialization is carried out using such a special member function called constructor. So this is same point what you have discussed here. So see, this is the definition of a constructor. Constructor is a member function used to initialize the object of a class and these objects are initialized automatically. So now let us move on to next slide. And here the following are the rules to be followed to frame or to define a constructor. So a constructor always has the name that is same as the class name. So one of the feature, one of the characteristics that or one of the rules says that the constructor has the same name as that of class and name of which they are members. This will help the compiler to identify that they are constructors. So that is first point. Second, there is no return type for constructors, that is not even void. Generally, we have learned in our previous session or previous chapter about functions. So in functions is a group of a statement and each and every function returns a value, but constructors do not return any values. So there is a difference between constructors and methods or functions. So constructors do not return any value, so we are not supposed to use even void is a data type. Constructors should be declared in public section. Now we have learned the access specifiers in our previous chapter. So under public access specifier, we have to declare this constructor. Now a constructor is invoked automatically when the objects are created. Now when the constructor is defined or declared under public and it has to be invoked or it has to be called, so to initialize the object of a class. So when we are doing that, so whenever we are creating object of a class, so automatically these constructors are invoked. So this is one of the point. Now let us see that another rules. Constructors can have default argument. So here, what are default arguments? Here the constructors without any parameters are called default arguments. So it is not possible to refer to the address of the constructors. This is one of the point. And the constructors make implicit calls to the operator new and delete when memory allocation is required. And these are the points we are going to discuss in our next slides. So these are all the rules to frame and a constructor. Now let us move on to next slide. Here, declaration of constructor inside the class definition. So inside the class definition. Now let us see how do we declare a constructors. Now this is class test. So this is defining a class. This is the class name test. Open the bracket. And here we have to declare the variables int m, x, y. These are the variables. Under that, next we have public access specifier. So this is a public access specifier. Under that, we are defining a constructor. So this is a constructor. So because constructor has the same name as that of class. So here class name is test, and here this is a special member function. So but the name is same as that of class. So test is the name of the class and it is a constructor. And here this is default constructors as we have seen in the previous slide. So here there are no parameters inside this. So test, and here open the bracket, and this is closing this constructor. Inside this we have written the statements. This is x equal to 0 and y equals to 0. Then we are closing the class with semicolon. This is how we declare a constructor under public access specifier. So this is a constructor inside the class. Now let us see an example program, a program to work with constructors. Now the program as usual starts with the header files, then defining a class example. So we are defining a class and these classes are closed here with semicolon. Under that, int a comma b, declaration of variables, this variable declaration, and under public we have constructor. So how can we make out is a constructor? By looking at the name of the member function. So here example, this is the name of the class and same name we are using for constructor. So example, and again no parameters here, this is a default constructor. So open the bracket and inside this we are writing a statements. Here a equal to 10, b equal to 20. Here the a and b are the two variables we have declared and we are assigning values of these variables inside a constructor. Now we are closing the constructor here. Then one more function, this is void display. So this is not a constructor because the function name here is display, the class name is example. So this cannot be a constructor. It is a normal function. So under this we are displaying the values of a and b, cout values a and b, closing this function here. Then we are closing the class here. So this is a class definition and we are defining a class, and inside that we have a constructor under public access specifier. After defining a class, next we have to write the main function. So void main function, open the bracket, and here as we have learned in our previous slides or previous sessions, first step in the main function would be the creation of an object. So we have to create an object of a class. So this is example space object. Here example is the name of the class. Now we can see that the class name is example. So this is example space object. Object is an identifier. So in this example, it is an object of a class example. Now we have to access the data members, and already we have learned in our previous slides the constructors are automatically invoked when the objects are created. So as soon as the object of the class is created, so it calls the constructors, or automatically constructors are invoked. So after that, next we have to call the function display. So display is the function we have defined here, display. So we have to call that function. So this is name of the object dot display. Object dot display. Here we are invoking a function. Then get ch, close the bracket. So we are closing the void main here. This is the void main function. Now what would be the result of this? So we'll get values of 10 and 20. So this is a simple example to show the working of constructors. Here observe this. In the constructor, we have entered the values of a and b here. So this is the function of constructor. It automatically initializes the object of a class. So values of a and b we have entered inside a constructor. So same values are carried out at this stage here. So output of this program would be 10 and 20. So this is an example to show the working of constructors. Now let us see another example to show or to work with constructor. Now this is a program to find sum of series 1 plus x squared and x to the power of n. It is using constructor. Now look at the program here. First the program starts with the header file iostream.h, conio.h and mat.h. Now we have to define the class. So here class power, open the bracket, and private, under private we are having int x comma n I sum. These are the variables declaration, and under public we have power. This is the power is name of the constructor because name of the class is power. So this is the constructor. Under that there is one statement sum equals 1. So this is the constructor because this special member function has the same name as that of class here. So then we are closing this constructor. Then we are defining or we are declaring here three more functions here. That is void get data is a function, void compute and void display. So these are, we are declaring the function inside a class. The class name is here power. So then we are closing the class here. So class is opened here and we are closing the class here with semicolon. So this is first step is defining a class with the members and member function. And here we have defined a power. This is a constructor inside the class. After this, next step is to define the functions, or we have to write the function definition for all these three functions. So this is outside the class void power, and here 2 colon, that is scope resolution operator, and name of the function get data. So this get data, and get data is name of the function. So we are defining the function outside the class. So class is closed here. We are defining this function outside the class through a scope resolution operator. So inside the function we are writing statement cout enter value for x and n, and we are accepting c in x and n and closing the function here. So this function is closed, that is get data, and in get data we are accepting the values for x and n. Next one is void power compute. So this is another function we have declared here. It has to be defined, function definition. So this function starts here and ends here. So this is another function compute. Again power with the scope resolution operator and compute. And these are the statements for I equal to 1, I less than or equal to n, I plus plus, and sum equal to sum plus power of x comma I. So this is a function. So then after that we have to write one more function. This is display. Void display is a function that has to be defined through scope resolution operator. Here sum of the series is equal to sum. So we are displaying the result inside the function. So here we have defined all the three functions. So next step is we have to write main function, that is void main. So under void main, the first step is defining an object of a class. So that is power. Power is the name of the class here, power space P. Here P is an object. So then clear screen, then P dot get data. So we have to invoke the function. We have to call the functions one by one in the same order. So P dot get data, P dot compute, P dot display, and get ch. So actually the P dot get data, so we are using this function to accept the values for x and n, and display or compute, we are calculating the sum of the series inside the function compute. Then we are displaying the result in the function display. Then this is the main function. So this would be the output of this program. So this is an example program to show the working of constructors or to work with constructors. We move on to next slide. Our next concept, type of constructors. Now here we have learned the definition of constructors and we have seen simple example. Now let us see what are all different types of constructors. They are default constructors, parameterized constructors, and copy constructors. These are the three types of constructors. Now let us see the syntax and definition for all the three one by one. Now first one is default constructor. So default constructor. So what is the definition of that? A constructor which does not accept any argument. Does not accept any argument is called a zero argument constructors or default constructors. So what is a default constructor? I mean, it is a constructor which do not have any arguments. So let us see the syntax of that. Syntax, class name, open the bracket, and here we are closing the class, and inside that we are using under public the same class name. This is the class name and same class name to define the constructor. For example, class add here, open the bracket, private, there are two variables a, b and sum. Under public we have add. So this is add is the name of the constructor because the class name is add here. So class name is add and constructor is add here. So this is a constructor. Then inside that we are writing a statement sum equal to 0 and closing this and close the class here. So this is an example for default constructors. If you observe this, inside this there are no parameters, that means zero parameters. So this is called as a default constructors. Constructor where we are not using any parameters or arguments. That is default constructor. Now let us see another type of constructor, that is parameterized constructor. So look at the example here. What is a parameterized constructor? Here these are the constructors with an argument or with the parameter. Now look at the syntax. Here class name, and open the class, and class ends here, and private variable int b is the variable, and a public we have class name. This is the class name. It is nothing but a constructor, but observe this, it has a argument or it is a parameter. In this example, this constructor has one argument. So this is a parameterized constructor. Inside this b equal to a. So here this is the variable b, and this is the variable a. We are assigning this value of a to the variable b. We have declared in the beginning. Then we are closing this constructor. Then we are closing the class here. So this is the syntax for parameterized constructor. Now let us look at the example. Class add, private, there are variables a, b and sum. Under public we have add int x comma int y. Here add is a constructor because class name is add here. So this member function is add here. Add int x comma int y. Inside that we are assigning x and y variables to the variables declared under private access specifier. So this is the parameterized constructor. or these are the constructor with arguments. Now we are closing the constructor here and we are closing the class here. So this is an example for parameterized constructor. Now let us see one more type of constructor, that is copy constructor. So what is copy constructor? A copy constructor is a parameterized constructor using which one object can be copied to another object. So what is copy constructor? Here one object can be copied to another object through copy constructor. That is the definition of copy constructor, and syntax is class name and operator class name with class name, and this is nothing but and PTR is a pointer variable. It is the address of PTR, or we are passing an object as an argument. And here look at the example for this. In this class add and private int a, b, some are the variables, and under public we have add obj. Please observe this. So this is add is a constructor because add is the name of the class add here. So add inside the bracket as an argument add space ampersand obj. Here again this add is name of the class, and whatever I am going to write here will be the object of this particular class. So in this example, under copy constructor, we are passing or we are writing an object of a class as a parameter. If you observe in our previous example, yes, under parameterized constructor, observe this, this is only a variable. For constructors, even here, for constructor, these are only a variables, not an object. But under copy constructor, we are writing object of a class. How can we make out the object here? Because this is add is the name of the class. Then inside that a equals to object dot a and b equal to object dot b. And how we are accessing the variables here? This is also one of the important factor here. A and b are the variables. We are accessing these variables through object here. So object dot a and object dot b. So this is an example for a copy constructor. Now let us see a simple example to show the working of different types of constructors. Now this is a program, and the program starts with the header files, then class add here, private int a, b, some are the variables. Under public we have add. So add is the name of the class. So this is a constructor, sum equal to 0, and observe this. In this example, add, there are no parameters, so that is a default constructor. And next one is under public, we have one more constructor, add, because name of the class is add here, add int x comma int y. So here these are parameters. So this is nothing but a parameterized constructor. So under that, as we have seen in the previous example, assigning these variables a and b to the variables declared in the parameter. So we are closing this constructor here, and one more constructor, this is add here, add in the bracket add ampersand obj. This is what we have seen in our previous slide or previous example. Inside this we are accessing the elements through object dot a, object dot b. So this is an example for copy constructor. So this is an example for copy constructors. Then after that we are defining one more function. Method is called void compute. Inside that sum equal to a plus b means we are adding two numbers. So see out sum, we are printing this result. Then after this we are closing the class here. So the class, this is opening of a class and this is end of a class with semicolon. And inside that we have different types of parameters. And void main, we have to write the main function, and inside this the first step is creation of an object. So add obj1, this is we have created an object 1, again add obj2, and 5 comma 20. So this is another object of same class here, same class. Add here, add is the name of the class. And again add obj3, this is one more object. So for the same class we are declaring or we defining three objects. And here now if you look at the first example or in the first line, add obj1, see here there are no parameters, so automatically the compiler, it goes to the default constructor. So from here the control transfer default constructor, where it assigns the value or it uses this function where we have assigned 0 to the variable sum. So the first line going to invoke the default constructor, and second one, if you observe this, here there are two parameters, I mean 5 and 10 are the two values. So automatically the compiler transfer this control from here to parameterized constructor, where we can find two parameters for two different values. So this is how we are invoking parameterized constructor. Next line is add obj3 equal to obj2. Here obj2 is nothing but an object created here. So this is through copy constructor, we are copying from object 2 to object 3. So this is how we invoke copy constructors. Next, obj2.compute, this is a function, we are invoking a function and we are closing the void main here. So this is an example program to show the use of different types of constructor in a program. Students, in this session, so far we have learned the definition of constructors and what are the rules to write a constructors and different types of constructors with different or simple examples. We will continue our discussion in my next session. Thank you so much.